Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be working on the FC fan shroud mold. I have been working off and on this project for quite some time, really not dedicating a whole lot of time on it. So I have the plug right here. This is what the fan shroud is going to look like, but it's going to be carbon fiber. So I need to make the mold. I have a piece of signboard right here. I need to pretty much use some of this plasticine clay, mount it to the signboard, and what I'm going to end up doing is using a Flexolite fan on my coil radiator and then a fan controller, and this should be a really nice option compared to what is out there. I ordered like 3 different fan shrouds and none of them ended up working. None of them fit correctly, none of the brackets worked, so that's why I ended up doing this. So I'm going to kind of take you through the mold making process. After this video, I'll do the carbon fiber vacuum bagging process and everything for a fan shroud. It'll kind of give you how to get this stuff done, but I really didn't go into too much detail of making the plug. All it is a piece of fiberglass, and then I body worked it. So I ended up using a bunch of signboard pieces to make the original fiberglass piece, and then I used a lot of filler to make all the edges round and stuff like that. So not really too difficult, just whatever you're doing. This was cleared, I 1000 gridded it. It's pretty much where it needs to be. It doesn't need to go it doesn't need to be polished really, because I will end up polishing the mold and getting any more imperfections out of the mold, because after the mold cures, there's always print back from the first layer of fabric through the gel coat. So it's always a good idea to sand those down and buff them anyway. So what I have is the plug, piece of signboard to make the flange. So when you vacuum bag it, you have some nice flat surface to work on. I have all kinds of stuff right here, but since this is going to be a carbon fiber mold, I'm actually making it so it's high temp. So I could make a dry carbon piece, but I'm just gonna go and just vacuum bag it and it'll be good enough for what it is. So I have some high temperature surface coat. I have the hardener for it. I also have the laminated resin. It's aluminum filled to transfer the heat, because when you vacuum bag and make dry carbon, it's like 350 degrees. So there's a hardener for that. I have the fabric for the mold. So it's carbon fiber fabric. You use 8 layers of this, you use 2 layers of this. Just got the fan shroud plug glued down to a piece of signboard. These things are like 10 bucks or so at Lowe's or Home Depot. And the good thing about them is you really don't have to put mold release on them, because the gel coat won't stick to them, because it's I don't know, it's made out of like a plastic. So That's a good thing, but I still put mold release on it. Just finished hot gluing it down. Then I filled in the gap with some plasticine, and then I just got done using mold release on the whole thing. I also put some on the flange as well, just to be a little bit precautious, because you know, you don't want it to stick and not be able to come off, because this is going to be the flange of the fan shroud. That's where I'm going to put all the vacuum bag consumables and the tape and everything like that, so it holds vacuums. Laying down the 10 layers, or pre-laying down the 10 layers of carbon fiber. So there's the first layer is 3K fabric, 8 layers of 12K fabric, and then the last layer is another layer of 3K. And before you lay the carbon down, obviously you lay down the gel coat, which the mold is ready now. I'll pull all these off, set them on a plastic bag, and I just wanted to get everything ready, and it is very smart to get all this stuff ready and pre-cut all of the corners. So wherever you need to make a cut so it can form around a corner or something like that, you want to make sure to do it before you start laying it down, because you only have a certain amount of time to work with the resin, and you don't want to have to be trying to cut this with your, you know, resin on your hands and stuff like that, because then you get resin all over your scissors and it's just a nightmare. So this is a really good idea, just to make sure you do a pre-run, set it up. Same thing when you vacuum bag a part, you want to pre-vacuum bag it and stuff like that, just to make sure you're not going to run into any issues. So let's get all this carbon fiber off of here, put it in the booth, mix up some gel coat. Now the gel coat is tacky to the touch. You can see when I touch it, it leaves a little impression, but it doesn't stick to your finger or anything like that. You can still see my glove is clean. So that is the perfect time. So now what I'm going to do is mix up the fiberglass resin and or mix up the resin, and then I'm going to put a coat of resin down, and then I'll start laying the fabric. So you want to put a coat down first so the fabric has something to adhere to, and then I'll lay all 10 layers of carbon fiber fabric down. It will take quite a while. I think the time lapse, I'm gonna have it running, but I think it's gonna probably run out pretty quick because it'll probably take me like an hour or maybe like a little bit longer than that. I was just able to get all 10 layers of carbon fiber down, and it's been like probably 2.5 hours. It takes quite a while to get all this stuff down and get it all wetted out, but now she's finally there. So what I have to do now is pretty much wait 24 hours. So it's 4 p.m. right now. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. I can pull the plug out of this mold, and we can see if the mold is going to be good enough for, you know, all this work that we did to it. So hopefully everything was, you know, hopefully I did enough mold release and all that stuff, and there's no voids. It doesn't look like there is, but hopefully tomorrow at 4 we're good. I was just able to get all 10 layers of carbon fiber down, and it's been like probably 2.5 hours. It takes quite a while to get all this stuff down and get it all wetted out, but now she's finally there. So what I have to do now is pretty much wait 24 hours. So it's 4 p.m. right now. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. I can pull the plug out of this mold. It is now the next day. The resin has cured, so it's nice and dry, nice and hard. So what I'm gonna do is actually peel all this board off of there. I'll flip it over, peel all the board off there, then pop the plug out of the mold, and then attend to any issues that the mold has. So usually what happens, I'll show you after I pull everything, after I pull the plug and all this stuff off, usually the fabric will print through to the gel coat. So you have to 1000 grit that out and then polish it. So we'll get this mold 100% ready to make a fan shroud for the FC. Finished getting the plug out of the mold. It was a little difficult to get the plug out because it didn't have any flanges on it. The flange that I made was just out of the poster board, so I just had to pretty much grab onto it and kind of pull it out, then put some air behind it to lift it up. Air pressure works very well for releasing molds, but now this is what we have. It's actually a pretty smooth finish. There are a few little tiny things that are actually that might just be, no, that's yeah, it's a little bit there, and then just need to clean the mold up as well as get it nice and polished, ready to go. Clean all these edges up. You can still see there's a lot of clay, plasticine still around here. And I also need to trim this flange, so I'm just gonna pretty much give it a nice little gap all the way around, and then we'll be good to go. The mold will be ready to make a part for the FC. So we're getting really close to be having a carbon fiber FC fan shroud, but it does take quite a bit of work. And since I did make this mold, I may actually end up selling them, but we'll see how interested people are in them, because it does take a lot of work to, well, it did take a lot of work to make the mold, but it also takes a lot of work to vacuum bag a carbon fiber part. So, and it's not cheap, but this thing is a pretty heavy duty because it's 10 layers of carbon fiber. What I'm supposed to do after I polish this is post cure it, which I'm not exactly sure if I'm going to make dry carbon fan shrouds. So we'll see. If I trim up the edges and everything, I may throw it in my powder coating oven for, it's like 6 hours. So I don't know if I really want to spend the time to do that. But yeah, let's get this all cleaned up. The FC fan shroud mold is now complete, and I trimmed the edges up. So the pieces are over there. I actually want to see if those things are bulletproof later on. Not in this video. I might throw it on my Instagram because you know how YouTube and that stuff is, but I did go over this with the wool pad. On the inside, there's not really a reason to go and polish this outside. You can see the texture from the signboard right there. That's completely fine. All it has to do is hold the vacuum bagging sticky, the adhesive for the vacuum bag, and just hold the vacuum bag. So all that stuff's gonna get cut off when the fan shroud is finally made. And you know, I pull it out of the mold, I'm gonna trim those edges up, and then I'm just gonna use straps, which this thing, you can see how glossy it is. So I polished it with the wool pad, and that is just 1000 grit to wool pad polish. And you can see how nice and clear and shiny that is. And that's really, really good mold because, or that's a really good surface because whatever part I make, or when I make the fan shroud, that's what the fan shroud's gonna look like. That's gonna be the texture. And when I did pull this off, I probably should have showed it. When I pulled the first plug out of there, or when I pulled the plug out of it, you could see the 1000 grit sanding scratches in it because the gel coat actually mimics whatever surface there is. But 1000 grit is really nice because you could just go over it with a wool pad. It'll run out really nice and make it nice and shiny. And we just have a really nice mold. So I did have one issue. There's a void right here. I actually put a little bit of gel coat in there. I wanted to make the carbon fiber fan shroud today, but it had that void. So I just put a little bit of gel coat in there. I'll sand it out with 1000 grit tomorrow and then buff that spot, and we should be ready to make this part. So I'm just really happy that it's at this stage. I should have an electric fan finally on the FC. It's been a long process, but I haven't really been dedicating too much time to it. Just when I have spare time or I'm doing something else that is similar, I work on it. So the one thing about it is this thing is pretty heavy. It's 2 layers of 3K carbon, 8 layers of 12K carbon, and it's very heavy. So the roof is like a lot bigger than that. And I don't know, it's gonna be heavy. That roof is gonna be really heavy, or the mold for the roof is gonna be really heavy. It's probably gonna be over, it might be like 200 pounds. But I got shorter on fabric. I ordered like another like $2,000 or $3,000 worth of materials. So I should be able to, not should, by Friday, as long as the stuff comes by Friday, over the weekend I could do that mold. We'll be ready for the roof, get the carbon roof finished. And by that time, I'll probably have this thing done with a, you know, I'll make a carbon fiber fan shroud, have it on the FC. That'll be awesome. I'll have the carbon fiber roof, and then we can finally get to painting the charger. So I am really happy that this thing's done. If you like these videos, I'm gonna end the video here. Make sure to click the subscribe button, throw a thumbs up, throw a comment below. If you wanna see me make a larger mold, this is a pretty decent sized mold. I mean, you know, it's pretty large. It goes on a coil radiator. If you wanna see me make a huge mold, just stay tuned. Probably next week sometime, I will have the video out making this mold. As always, see you guys next time.